What's going on YouTube? My name is Ginge TCG or Chris, and today I'm back with a bit more of a talk show episode. There's been some big updates off the Pokemon Presents, and I wanted to jump into them and just kind of share my opinions about what I think is going on in the format. This is gonna go for Pokemon Pocket and the TCG. The Pokemon updates are really quick, which is why. Did I just say Pokemon? Did I combine Pokemon and All right. Well, y'all get what I mean. These updates are quick. Nothing crazy. Nothing too insane. We got the new set that actually will be out, I believe, at the time of the video, because it said comes out on February 28th, and this video is going up on the 28th. I'm recording it here on the 27th, the day the set released. So, of course, we'll just jump in. We got the new set coming to Pokemon Pocket, which is nice, and I know a lot of people, including myself, have honestly had literally zero urge to keep playing the game. I mean, the new events don't really do much. We've kind of had them before. It's just, do some battles, get, a cool little emblem thing to put on your character. Nothing insane when you're going into matches, nothing crazy. No real new mechanics, nothing, just new cards, which is fun. I still go on, get my daily packs, but that's about it. I don't battle as much. So the new set, I don't think is going to change much. What I do think is going to change a lot more is the new ranked mode that's coming out on TCG Pocket. I think ranked is a perfect step that Pocket needed to bring back the player base to get more into battling. Obviously, there's always the collector side of it, and if you collected before, there's nothing new other than collectors other than new sets. So I think, just keeping the sets coming out at the pace they are is important. I think they're doing a great job of that. But for people who like battling like I do, I think ranked is exactly what this game needed to keep people into it. It's not going to be the same, kind of dry win 45 matches or win 5 consecutive matches in a row. A ranked format introduces the dumb gimmick that I know people, it's like, oh, it's just a ranked score. It's just a number that's thrown on your name. It doesn't do much. It's not like anything new. No, but I guarantee like 75, if not 90% of the games you play probably have a ranked format that does nothing else other than that too. Even if they give you just small, almost like cosmetic-based awards, such as like, I don't know, like deck sleeves and stuff like that if you make it to Masters, like unique things that you can use in the battles, or maybe certain emblems that are specific to ranked season, I think that is something people can continuously work for, and it could obviously benefit to play the game more, or it could just benefit to win more. So it takes out like winning 45 matches in a row, or winning 5 games consecutively. You could do like a mix of just playing the game, winning consecutively, obviously will help, and if you win consecutively, you won't need to play that many games to boost your rank score. So I think those are two updates that overall Pocket greatly needed. This is coming out at the end of March. I don't believe the release date was set, but a ranked ladder in less than a month's time will fly by in no time. So I definitely can't wait to get some videos coming out once we're on the ranked ladder. Now, I know most of y'all tuned in because of the other news on Pokemon Pocket, so we'll just jump into those right now, I believe it. And one of those is going to be Mega Guardy EX. So, also, I apologize if the screenshots aren't perfect when I was watching the presents. I made my own screenshots and tried to get the best quality I could. But we got Mega Gardevoir EX, a 360 HP Stage 2 Pokemon, Overflowing Witches for each of your benched Pokemon. Search your deck for a basic Psychic Energy and attach it to that Pokemon, then shuffle your deck. I don't think that attack is too insane. I think it's the Mega Symphonia. This attack does 50 damage for each Psychic Energy attached to all your Pokemon. Pair that with the base Guardy EX, and you have a absolutely insane way to keep consistently attacking Screens, Chatterite, or Calyrex, to me, which honestly wasn't necessarily the best deck. I think it was solid for a while in the Chilling Reign format, but it fell off kind of quickly. And I think this deck comparatively just isn't as good. I don't think Mega Gardevoir is anything that's going to break the game too much. Mega's introduced 3 prizes, and trust me, I get a lot to say on what I think that's going to do to the format. But right now, I just want to talk about the 2 Megas that were revealed and their impact, and then I'll get into like the Mega EX impact as a whole. So Gardevoir EX, I don't think it's going to do much. I think by the time this comes out, refinement's gone. So unless there's a new Kirlia that's got some sort of insane draw engine to naturally include in your now Gardevoir line, you have to make 2 of your Kirlias or 2 of your Ralts into 2 different Gardevoirs without the natural draw engine. And I think doing that isn't going to be solid. I think it's a stage 2 deck. You need that sort of draw or search engine. Maybe you compare it, you can put in a card like Pidgeot, which is another stage 2. You see it in decks like Charizard and Hydreigon. You combo them with Pidgeot because you got a stage 2 Pokemon. Now you got the best search ability in the game. They can go well. I just think what hurts that is without refinement, you don't have a great way to get energy and discard. Discard 1 to get 2 cards is so perfect in Gardevoir EX because you easily get rid of Psychic Energy to put it in discard and then use the EX's ability. I think without that, honestly, this deck kind of falls short. I think swinging 360 HP isn't anything too crazy. There are plenty of cards that can counter this, which again I'll get into when I talk about all of the EXs, but most notably is going to be Charizard EX heading for weakness. It's already a super popular deck. I think if this deck takes off, we're just going to see a rise in Charizard stocks, as well as some other decks, which I will hop into. But the card that they revealed that I think is much more impactful is Mega Lucario EX. So this beast is a stage 1. It's got 340 HP. The top attack, I think, honestly, is the best attack that I've seen in a while. Aura Jab for 130 damage, just 1 energy. You attach 3 basic fighting energy cards from your discard pile and attach them to your benched Pokemon in any way you like. Now, I know that attack might seem kind of underwhelming, but I think when you take into account that you don't need them to be fighting Pokemon, and this can accelerate to any Pokemon you want, I think this card gets infinitely better. It really gives Garchomp EX. You know, with Hydrolander, 1 energy, you accelerate 3 basic fighting energy to your bench Pokemon in any way. The biggest difference is this is a stage 1. If you go first on your second turn, all you have to do is play Ultra Ball, even a Salvatore if you want to play a supporter line or something like that. Just some way to get a stage 1 into your hand is so much easier than a stage 2. It's just more consistent. Now, instead of those rare candies, you have space for other cards. And then you also have the Mega Brave attack, where you do 270 damage, and during your next turn, this Pokemon can't use Mega Brave. I don't think that's that busted, because what you would do essentially if you're not KO'd is you would use Mega Brave to, you know, like if you had 2 energy on an active Lucario, and 2 energy on a benched Lucario, which you could easily set up from Aura Jab, because remember, you'll have 3 energy on your benched one. From the top Aura Jab, then you'll manual attach that turn. You use Mega Brave for 270, which will KO anything that's not a stage 2. Yeah, because V-Stars would have rotated, so pretty much, yeah, any stage 2, except for the super tanky stage 1s. I'm thinking like Arch Aladdin and Blissey EX. I know, Blissey EX is weakness. Never mind, just Arch Aladdin. Like, you'll get around 270. That's such a good number to hit. And then you'll just retreat, use another Mega Brave, and boom. You've done, what, 640 damage? No, excuse me, 540 damage, I believe, in no time, in 2 turns. That's nuts. You know, the 2 retreat cost is very easy when you have an attack like Aura Jab to set up extra energy and just manual attach. And you can pull off 2, if not 3 consecutive attacks very easily. I think as a fighting type attacker, okay, sure, you're weak to Psychic, but with Aura Jab, you can combo so many other Pokemon in your deck to deal with Psychic decks, especially the new Mega Gardevoir we're seeing. I think Lucario is overall the stronger card that's coming out. I think it replaces that void that we're seeing with Arceus V-Star, which is one of my favorite cards leaving the format. I think just accelerating fighting energy, sure, it kind of limits you to Pokemon that can use fighting energy, but there are so many Pokemon that are colorless or need a random energy and 2 colorless energy that you can use this and luminous energy for. I think it'll be a very consistent deck. I think whatever Lucario, Mega Lucario evolves into, it's going to be very powerful, and I think this is more the one to watch out for other than Gardevoir. That being said, the Pokemon Company loves making Gardevoir decks busted, so I'm sure we will get some insane Curlier or some insane supporter that just makes that card, you know, the best thing ever. But right now, with the cards we know we have, I think Lucario is better. Now, this is the part where I'm gonna hop into what bringing back 3 prize Pokemon do to the format. And before I get into, I guess, the negative, which I hate to end on, I just think there's more to say, I do want to talk about some possible pros for the format. So one of the pros that I think having 3 prizers bring to the format is quick games, and I'll get into that on more the con side as well, because it's totally 2 different sides of a very interesting coin, and it's really dependent on your playstyle and what you like. I think quick games are really good when you're thinking about like regional and the higher level competitions. I know a lot of times an abundance of ties can ruin people's day 2 run, and I think generally, like when VMAXs were in the format, because that's when I went to regionals, I never played with tag teams at a regional level, but I did play with them when I first started playing the game. With VMAXs, many games were quicker. They were overall less turns. You could close out games faster. Your opponent could close out games faster. And I think when that happens and there's less ties, you have a better shot at least fighting for a win, which could get you into day 2. And with the new championship point format, where it's like, you know, the rounds are based off player size, I think quick games have some cons at that level. I think when you're playing on live, you're playing on online tournaments, you're playing at local tournaments, I think in those smaller events or the matches where there's less on the line, I feel like people look for more fun, more longevity, more out of the game because that game is more impactful and there's less you're fighting for. You know, you're fighting to have fun in the game, and a lot less people care about their wins at a locals compared to a regional. And I think in that sense, like the more day-to-day sense, I think the quick games will hurt. And again, I'll get into that in the cons, but I think, you know, for the highest level of play, I actually don't hate quicker games. I think another pro, at least for me, is 8 prize card games. The only time I ever made day 2 was playing in Arceus V-Star and Friends deck. Arceus V-Star, Flying Pikachu VMAX, and Tapu Koko VMAX. I think forcing your opponent to take 8 prize cards is a super interesting, a super fun, and a very underrated way to play the game. And if you're wondering, Chris, how are you doing that? All right, you only have 6 prize cards when you play. Yes, no, you're right. You only have 6 prize cards. But what you do is you force your opponent to take either the first or second KO on a 2 prize Pokemon, basically any EX that is in the format when Megas come out. Once they've taken 2 prize cards, you then force them with the only other 2 Pokemon in play being Mega EXs. When that happens, you go from 2 prize cards, and then they take 3 more off the first Mega EX. Now they've taken 5, and then once they kill the second one, they've got to take 3 more prize cards. So now they've taken 8 prize cards worth of damage. If you knock it back down to about 100 damage per prize card, you're looking at they need to do 800 damage to close out the match instead of theoretically 600 damage. Obviously that number can change based on what Pokemon you're using and if it's tankier or not, or if you got certain tools that buff the HP. That's just how the game works. I'm just using that as a reference to kind of put a number and help people create more of a visual when I say 8 prize card games create more work. I think that is kind of a fun aspect of the format that takes some of the weight off. So, you know, stuff like Dusknoir being so insane, as well as Briar, like you could force your opponents to go on prize cards in other ways other than just playing single prize Pokemon. Now maybe, you know, a certain Pokemon like Gardevoir using, there's a 3 prize option, so you could opt to use that as a one of instead. And I think that could bring more versatility into deck building. Which again, it doesn't necessarily always force the 8 prize card game, but in that sense it stops Briar and stuff like that, and that could totally be worth it. So, you know, it's definitely an option, and I think 8 prize card games are more of a pro than anything else. I think the biggest pro when I see 3 prize cards, three prize card Pokemon taking over, is that single prize decks are so much better positioned. Last format that really I feel like made me absolutely miserable was Silver Tempest, where there was like a lot of 3 prize Pokemon like Rapidash, Urshifu, Mew VMAX in the format, and one of the most notable decks that also was the most fun for me and so many people that I used to watch, and you know, like a lot of the big YouTubers, a lot of the big streamers, a lot of the competitive players love decks like Regis. The Regis and early versions of Lost Box that use that amazing rare Rayquaza and Raikou, those were single prize only decks that did so well because you're trading 1 prize Pokemon into 3 prize KOs. So if you can one-shot them, in the case of Regigigas that was able to one-shot VMAXs, your single prize Pokemon was able to take 3 prize cards and get triple its worth, which is trading very positively and something that makes single prize decks fly through the roof. Even if you're two-shotting, you know, 3 prize Pokemon, you're still getting value. I think when you look at a lot of 2 prize decks, you're like, man, now I have to 2-shot this 3 prizer, and that's not great, because if they're one-shotting me in return, I'm thinking of like Mega Lucario EX, you know, they're gonna one-shot a lot of stage 1 EX Pokemon. They're gonna take 4 prize cards with 1 Mega EX. Now you're trading negatively. When you look at single prize decks that are still 2-shotting, you're taking 3 prize cards at the cost of 2, because, you know, assuming you got the second attack or something like that and you traded a bit more negatively. I think 3 prize Pokemon brings single prize cards back to a better spot. That's something I love. I love playing single prize decks more than anything. There's very few archetypes that I've had a lot of fun with. One of the ones that's really coming to mind is Ancient Box. I think when Mega EX Pokemon come out, Ancient Box, especially with Koraidon that's swinging 180, I mean, that is the perfect deck to bring into a 3 prize format, because they can maybe take massive late game KOs depending on maybe more ancient cards you could stick in the deck. Maybe there's by that point faster ways to get cards and discard. There's more efficient A specs for the deck. You don't know what's going to come out for Ancient Box, but the archetype as a whole right now I think can already hang with 3 prize Pokemon. That is going to be huge. I think by that time Mega EXs come out, there's going to be more viable single prizers. I know a fun one I've thought of was like Heatran, you know, with Metang. Sure, it's not fun, but if you're just going for a meme single prize deck, it can 100% one-shot a 3 prize Pokemon. 2, if not, it's going to 2-shot them. And like I said, that's still trading very positively, so why complain that much? That one's just a little bit more of a gamble with Matangs than Ancient Box, which is a bit more consistent and solid to play. Now, the cons. I think there's a lot more cons for, a format with 3 prize Pokemon than EX Pokemon. I think, yes, there's some pros that I mentioned are brought to the table, and I think a lot of people universally have always hated 3 prize Pokemon for many reasons. I've been playing the game for a few years now. Since the late Sun and Moon era is kind of when I was introduced to it, so I've almost always had 3 prize Pokemon since I started playing, and I always hated formats where 3 prize Pokemon dominated. The first one I'm going to jump into is quick games. So I know I talked about how quick games could be a positive, and I did touch on how they could be negative. I think when people are playing more on the day-to-day, the quicker games are going to be more anticlimactic. They might feel more boring. They might not feel like you're getting as much out of them. And I think that's because there's just less turns being taken. I think the games that I remember the most as being the most fun and make me love the game as much as I do there's a couple that have been at regional settings, but I think most of them have honestly been played at my kitchen table or even on TCG Live with some of my best friends. Just building that bond and just playing with them. And the people close to me enjoying and playing this hobby, those games that took like an hour to finish one game, and for some reason you're playing 2 insane decks that were totally nuts, totally not meta, and they were so well matched. I think those are the best games, and I think when you make games quicker, you kind of take away from those because now it's a little easier to play, those 3 prize decks. There's a lot less turns, which means there's less opportunity to misplay. It means it's easier to figure out your matchups and how to run your deck, and I think that feeds into bullet point number 2, which is a lower skill level. I think 3 prize Pokemon as a whole kind of lower the skill floor needed for people to play Pokemon TCG. I think that is phenomenal for new players. I think new players, it makes it easier to grasp for them, which I guess is a pro. But I think Pokemon compared to Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! As a whole is just a bit easier to conceptually understand and to get better at quicker and kind of take off. And I think having a lower skill level isn't necessary enough for new players. I think the game is growing big as is at the spot we're at. I think introducing 3 prize Pokemon and lowering the skill level, I don't think that's going to do it justice. I think that's going to take away from some of the variance that you see in pro players just playing at such a higher level, and I think that's what makes the game interesting is because it's a card game. It's a hobby where I think a grind is appropriate. I don't think lowering that skill level, making it easier for people to get insane at is great in a card game. I think that stuff is better left in certain video games and other stuff like that. I think tabletop games and card games were always meant to have a bit more of a grind to them, and I always love that aspect. Now, that being said, that's not to take away that pro players are now going to be as good as the average Joe. I still think pro players are going to play at levels that I will probably never play at. And I think that's fine. I think that's good. I think that's what needed if there's any sort of real competitive scene in something, especially like the Pokemon trading card game. I just think a lower skill level, it's not really what people want to see, especially because we know Megas are going to be printed for a long time. Feeding into the lower skill level, I have only showed off 2 EXs because that's all that was released, but Pokemon has this funny way of revealing cards that aren't insane when a new mechanic is introduced, and then making them more and more busted as time goes on. I think we saw that with VMAXs, especially. I think the earliest VMAXs were solid, they were pretty good, but I think as VMAXs went on, there was more VMAXs that were just so overpowered, and Mew VMAX is one of the ones that comes to mind. Mew VMAX and Rapid Strike Urshifu were 2 of the most dominant decks of their time. They weren't... Rapid Strike Urshifu was out, but I think... No, it did come later. Inteleon VMAX was the one that's out. I think Rapid Strike Urshifu actually came in Fusion Strike, something like that. I might be confusing which one came in Fusion Strike, but I know when Fusion Strike came out, both those decks kind of took off. But whatever, it doesn't matter about that. My point is... Pokemon at some point is going to release a Mega EX that is just so insanely busted that I think it is going to take over the format. I have been so happy because I thought that this game was moving into such a positive direction where we were seeing a lot more variance in tournaments. There was a lot more decks being played. I think when there's a 3 prize Pokemon with a lower skill level, that means it's easier to pilot, it's easier to run, it's less taxing for you to run at a major event. There's one that's going to be inevitably printed that's going to be so overpowered in so many aspects, just like Mew VMAX, that is just going to dominate a format again in the way that Silver Tempest Lugia and Mew VMAX have time and time again. And I think those were 2 of the worst points, and when many people opted to just stop playing the game or move to other games entirely, because people don't like playing a game when like 40% of the top players are just playing one deck. That's too many people playing one deck that is, it takes away from the versatility of the game. And I think one of the most fun things with Pokemon is playing against 9 different decks at a tournament like a regional. If 4 out of 10 matches are against one deck or more, just like statistically, that's not fun to play against. It's just how well can you do against this one deck? Now there's going to be less variance in decks because people are just going to counter the one deck. And then if you're not countering the one deck, chances are you're playing it. So, I don't know. I don't think that invokes the most exciting format, and I totally understand why a lot of people drop the game during those sets. Again, I don't think that's a definite. I'm hoping that Pokemon has learned from their mistakes with VMAXs, and maybe there will not be many Mega EXs printed, or they might not be as insane, or there's other EX Pokemon, or other trainer cards, or tool cards, or, something that's going to balance the Mega EXs more. And I hope that's the case because I don't want to see that type of dominance where there was like such an insane BDIF like the 2 decks that I've been previously mentioning this entire video. The other thing that bothers me is there's no mechanic. It's just bigger numbers. Actually, I skipped a dot point there. We'll have to dot point number 4. I put new mechanic in air quotes because it's just a mega in front of the Pokemon's name in EX. And it's just the whole, bigger number equals a better card, now you all gotta play this card. I think when you introduce stuff like V-Stars and A-Specs and Radiance, those, I think, bring a new level to deck making and skill level of decks because there's more thought that's put into it. When you can only use a certain thing, like a tag team attack, a GX attack, a V-Star power, V-Star attack, a Radiant, and A-Spec, those are cards that you can only play one of, or effects or attacks, whatever it is that you can only use one of. I think when you introduce a new mechanic like that, there's more versatility, there's more showing in skill level, there's more showing in a playstyle preference on the same deck, regardless of skill level, and I think it's the stuff like that that brings a lot of fun to the game. I think just having a bigger number equals better means that the playstyle is going to be the same for a lot of 3 prize decks because it's nothing other than, hey, I swing hard and I have a gross amount of HP. It doesn't show that much difference in terms of playstyle, and I think that, again, it hurts variance. And I think in card games I will keep repeating it because I think that's what's the most fun for many people, and that's pretty much what I built my entire channel off of, was playing a bunch of rogue decks. I mean, it's no secret that I'm an LDF inspired, for the win inspired YouTuber. There's so many YouTubers I've watched as I've grown in playing this game that love playing the cracked, weird, bulk bin decks that are fun and interesting to see. And if they can't hang against the BDIF, people aren't going to care as much because, there's no chance they'll ever do well at something even like a local. So, I think big number equals better is not generally the way to go. Not an extra evolution. I think that is the most impactful con. I'm looking at dot point number 3. What I mean by that, and I'm just gonna flip to Gardevoir EX really quick, is if you look in the top left, you see this stage 2, and I mentioned it on Lucario a lot. If you look in the top left, you see this stage 1. When we look at that, I think what comes to mind what comes to my mind is like break Pokemon. Pokemon Break were essentially like a 4th evolution on stage 2 Pokemon. They were like Greninja Break. Greninja Break was a stage 3. I don't know what it just did. Stage 3, if you will. And it took an extra turn to get in play. With these being stage 2, you could still rare candy them. You could still play Grand Tree. On a stage 1 Pokemon, all you need is Ultra Ball. Now you don't even need rare candy for a stage 1 Pokemon, especially when it has no effect. Like, it has to evolve from Curly. It has to evolve from a Gardevoir if it was a stage 4 or stage 3. Excuse me. It's just going to be too quick to get them in play. To turn 2, swing for 130, set up 3 energy, or even potentially turn 2, swing 270 with Lucario EX, because all that's going to take is 2 manual attachments, which going first is not that hard. I don't think that's great. I think that's going to make the format too fast, and very similar to, the Mew VMAX dominance, where it just evolved once, had a DT, attached, boom, swung, KO, there's nothing you could do about it. This is going to feel the exact same. And I think the difference with VMAXs and these Mega EXs that we're seeing is that Mew VMAX, at least there was one turn where a 180 HP 2-prize Pokemon had to be in play, which is relatively easy to KO with the numbers we got in the format. In this, you're going from a Riolu with 70 HP to a 360 HP stage 1. I mean, this 340, excuse me. This thing has more HP than Charizard EX, which is one of the tankiest, most consistent, best stage 2 decks ever. It changed the format and you just being able to try to one-shot it. Now we're going to have a 340 HP stage 1. That's nuts. I don't think that's good. I think not needing that extra evolution to evolve it from that whack Lucario EX we have right now, makes this deck too fast, too powerful, and too strong. You know, taking out that extra evolution that they could have easily said you needed to do, I don't think people would complain. It's like, oh no, I have to evolve Mega Gardevoir EX from Gardevoir EX. It's like, yeah, it's annoying. Maybe it's now just a one of late game attacker. Now this is going to be the primary attacker that you can set up at no problem. And I think that's why I'm so worried there's going to be a busted Stage 1 Mega EX that's going to come out and just destroy the format. Like, I'm calling it here. We're going to see it at some point, and I'm really not excited for it. Now, one of the other cons, and this one is much more of a personal take, is the best counters for these Mega EX decks are your Oko decks. The ones that come to mind the most are Golden Go, Chien Pao, Raging Bull, and Roaring Moon. My camera's over here. Those 4 decks are the most notable that come out when I think of Oko decks. I think Oko decks are overall the least fun to play against for me, and that's why I think it's more of a personal take, and it's only 2 prize decks like that that can truly hang against 3 prizers, because they don't have to worry about trading negatively like that. You know, they're alright, you're KOing a Chien Pao. Oh no, they're KOing you first. They're taking 2 prize cards. They don't care how much HP you have. That's been Chien Pao's whole vibe. Same with Golden Go. Same with Raging Bull. You know, it's like if you KO it, whatever. I mean, Raging Bull plays Charm, and it's pretty tanky. That's pretty nice. You could definitely dodge the Lucario EX with a Charm. You're at 290 or 300 with Ancient Booster Capsule. Might be an option again for the deck. Might be needed for the deck to hang. But more importantly, they're super easy to set up. They're super easy to take massive 2 prize KOs, and I think that's going to help those decks really fly up. The reason I put this as a con is because my least favorite attacks in the game are ones that just say your opponent's active Pokemon is KO'd, and that's why I left Roaring Moon last. Giratina V-Star was one of my least favorite decks to play against. Roaring Moon EX is one of my least favorite decks to go against. I just think that instantly taking a KO on your opponent's active, just saying, I don't care about how much HP you have, I'm blowing you up, I think that's a very anticlimactic way to play the game. I don't have anything against people who do play the deck. I totally understand that, you know, to some degree, maybe one of those cards is needed in every format just to be there lurking. I just think, again, same with my worry about a Mega EX coming out that is so busted, Pokemon makes the requirements for those attacks that instantly KO just so unbelievably easy. I mean, okay, Giratina Lost Box, Giratina V-Star, you needed 10 cards in the Lost Zone. It's a pretty decent requirement. You know, like, it's a little too easy because the format is very fast and you can fly through those 10 cards, but, you know, it's fair-ish, I guess. Roaring Moon, just needing 3 energy and doing 200 damage to yourself, I don't understand how that's a detriment. When you're playing a card like that, you're expecting to get KO'd in return. Oh no, you did 200 damage to yourself. It's like, it's not that big a problem. And I think, you know, it's like, oh, but you can Monkey Dory and do those 30 damage. Well, unless you're playing Gardevoir EX and you can put damage counters on yourself very easily, Monkey Dorying is going to be very hard. And okay, sure, maybe Gardevoir can swing well into Roaring Moon because of that, but now we're also a Dark type deck, so they could just play the single prize Roaring Moon and still swing for massive 1 prize KOs against Gardevoir EX or other Psychic decks like that. And I think that's why Roaring Moon is just so innately perfect, you know, as a way to explain why I hate this card. It's so easy to set up the attack, it's so easy to use the attack. The repercussion really isn't anywhere near what I think it needs to be for using that. I don't know a great way to go about it and how to balance Insta Oko cards, you know, that just don't care about your HP. Obviously, Mist Energy is something you could play, but Roaring Moon has played Temple of Sinnoh. Giratina V-Star has always abused Temple of Sinnoh to get around Mist. Like, I think that's too easy to counter. Yeah, I don't... You know, I think you need a card that, like, you know, prevents all effects of attacks done to this Pokemon in its attack. I'm trying to think of a card that has that innately. I don't, off the top of my head, I'm totally drawing a blank. Sorry, I had an insane day at work, so my brain is a little fuzzy, and I got getting a lot of negative energy vented off on this one, so thanks for hearing me out this far. But yeah, I mean, you guys get my point. It's like Altaria EX. I don't know why that's the first one that popped in mind. Altaria EX has an attack where if you use it, you prevent all effects of attacks done to this Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. So if you use that and it's stuck in the active spot, okay, Roaring Moon can't instantly OHKO you. Roaring Moon still has 2 attacks, 220 with the bottom attack. It's still a very respectable number, especially considering all you have to do is discard a Stadium. Pokestop will have rotated, but I'm sure there will be some new Instinct Stadium that Roaring Moon can play. So yeah, I think the best counters being Oko decks aren't awesome. I don't think that's a great way for the format. If all you're looking at is massive, ridiculous 3 prize Mega EXs in the format, And the only great way to counter those is your Insta Oko decks. I think that's going to lead to many boring formats. And I think if that's the case, my goal as a YouTuber might just be to create and pilot one single prize deck on many of my streams, bring it to many tournaments, try to take over on a single prize. That's not what I was hoping I would minimize into. That one, excuse me, single prize dominated deck. I think I used to be a huge Reggie's player. I think now that I have a channel and I can try to, I guess, figurehead one of these decks more and always kind of bully it into the format, I think that will probably be a goal of mine. And I want to end this video on something positive because I love having an optimistic view on things. I don't want to spend the whole time knocking on things. I think single prize decks are insanely fun to play. So I think as we get closer to Mega EXs coming out, I think I'm probably going to invest in a lot of single prize decks. I think single prize decks swing amazing into both Oko decks like Roaring Moon and Raging Bull, as well as Mega EX decks. And I think we just need one. We just need one single prize deck to just absolutely take the cake and just run the format and carry the rogue players like us. I think we're going to look at many single prize options or really, really random 8 prize options like my Arceus V-Star Flying Pikachu Tapu Koko VMAX deck. I think decks like that with literally no draw engine, nothing. Like, you could go on Limitless, you could see it. I played nothing but that. I played a Spiritomb to deal with Mew VMAX. That was my only other Pokemon in the deck. I didn't play a draw engine, I lived on a prayer. I think decks like that and single prize decks are fun to play. I think they offer some unique counters to many situations, and I think that's what I'm going to be riding my hope on, coming into a format where 3 prizers are reintroduced to the game. And I think, you know, if you're that upset at 3 prize Pokemon being introduced, I think this is the hope we have to latch onto. Is, you know, chances are you might not like a lot of those big Oko decks. You're sitting here complaining about 3 prize Pokemon with me. Let's band together. Let's find our single prize deck that we can figure out together. And I think that's going to be the best way for us to go about it. I will definitely be looking into it as a community. I mean, that's what this whole space is. That's what this whole channel is to me. It's just building the best community, a community I'm so thankful to have. You guys are such positive influence on me, and I know that together we can be a positive influence on the community as a whole, and we can show that single prize decks will be back and in a much better spot than we've probably seen since EXs have been introduced to the format as a whole. So, you know, I'm going to leave off on that positive note that I am excited for, because I think that excitement is going to outweigh any of the negativity I feel inside me when I'm playing this hobby that I love, and I know all of you do too, because you guys just sat through 32 minutes of me ranting about Pokemon cards with almost no Pokemon cards on screen, so good job for that. Now, with that being said, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. So if you want to hit me up in the Discord channel, I'd love to have a good conversation. If you want to hit me up in the comments and have a conversation here, please do. I for real appreciate all of you in the community we've built together. I don't think you guys understand. I'm gonna get a little sappy for a second how much this means to me. I'm going through a very challenging, I guess time. Just like with work and balancing with school and stuff like that. So just having this as an outlet and having a community that is so safe, so fun, and just so exciting to be a part of means the world. So I know that the positivity we feel here, it's gonna get us through whatever format, whatever awful BDIF lies ahead. I know we're gonna conquer together. So I'm looking forward to doing that with you guys. Now, with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. Stay epic. Peace.